All right, welcome back. So we're jumping back here into Wolverine by Saladin Ahmed, catching up here on issues 9 through 11. And it's here where we get the return of Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, which is not fully surprising, but now he's got Wolverine on the back foot here, but this time on an emotional level, because somehow he is tied into Wolverine's biological mother being back. So from the last time here when we dived into this, Wolverine had just found out that his biological mother was still alive, which rocked him with a lot of emotions, because number one, she's been dead for over a century after taking her own life. And that's something that we saw happen here back in Wolverine, The Origins issue number 3, something that she did right after she saw Logan manifest his powers after accidentally killing his biological father, Thomas Logan, who had just killed who he thought was his real father, John Howlett Sr. But now, not only is she apparently alive, she's also asking for him to come meet her because she is in trouble, which to Wolverine, as he puts it, is about as obvious as traps come, especially considering that the card style and the letter style that was sent to Wolverine is in a 19th century style, and it's also asking for him to meet her at the Howlett estate, his old family home, a home that holds a lot of bad memories for young James Howlett. Now, when we jump back here to the present, Wolverine was so deep in thought about all of this that he missed one of the local townspeople here, as Wolverine calls him, local loudmouth, pulling up on him. Now, apparently, this guy didn't like that Wolverine was eavesdropping on their mutant slurring conversation. So the guy lets Wolverine know that the conversation that they were having was private, to which Wolverine responds, he's like, yo, you should have it at a private volume. Which of course did not go over well. Now, when the guy tries to get his buddy involved, Wolverine kind of creepily flashes this big old cheesy grin. And in all honesty, this reminded me here of the horror movie Smile for a second. But then, when Wolverine is asked the question, what's your problem? Wolverine just simply says, no problem here, bub, just another happy drunk. You really want to see what happens when I stop smiling? And the guy's like, all right, says words and then moves on. So a little bit after this here, Wolverine finally hops out of the bar and then he decides to go hop in his pickup truck because he's heading over to the Howlett estate. Now, while he's driving, he's like, yo, it's a long, lonely drive from the edge of town to the grounds of the old Howlett estate. The kind of drive that sets you to thinking about all the things that you don't want to think about. I've been through a lot in this long, beat up life of mine. Been ripped to pieces by monsters, abducted and experimented on, died and come back to life more than once. So what's growing up without a mother compared to all that? Shouldn't even rate on the trauma scale, right? Right? But then it continues on, because by the time that he arrives here at the estate, it's dark, which of course suits Wolverine fine because he can see pretty well through the dark. And when he gets there, he realizes one strange thing. He's like, what is going on? Why is there a light in the window? But before he could get his answers, here comes someone throwing a harpoon into this dude's back. And when he sees who it is, well, it's Harpoon and Vertigo. And this gets Wolverine thinking, because he's like, these two used to be members of the original Marauders. But he's also like, that was years ago. Like, why are they here now? But either way, if it's a fight they want, a fight they'll get. So Wolverine, he goes back on the attack. And for Wolverine, at least as it pertains to Harpoon, this is light work, right? Because he's like, this dude is a glass cannon. But because he was focusing so much on Harpoon, well, that left him to an open attack here from Vertigo, which was, as he says, a big mistake. Because her powers go along with the name. The ability to make others feel off balance, dizzy, and disoriented. And for a second, everything starts to go dark, but then his healing factor catches up to him, and it counteracts the dizziness and the disorientation so that he can do what needs to be done. And it's here where Wolverine starts to put the pieces together. They're starting to fall in place for him now, because he's like, there's only one man I know that connects to the old Marauder crew and knows him well enough to come here in the first place. And this is when he catches, as he says, an angry scent, something like smoke from a raging fire that he knows for sure. And as he runs toward the manor house, the scent continues to grow stronger. It's the scent of my hate made flesh, the scent of someone who's taken everything from me again and again, the scent of a man who doesn't know how to stay dead. And that's when we see the image here of Sabretooth. Now, this is all weird because Sabretooth died back in Wolverine 2020 issue number 50 here as a part of the Fall of X saga. And that was after Wolverine chopped him up into pieces using the Muramasa blade. So at this point, we're not quite sure how Sabretooth has even come back as of yet, other than, you know, reasons, of course, which is the reason why Wolverine is like, I've lived a long time, and over the years, I've gotten pretty damn good at recon. I've had to case more than a few murderers' hideouts. But tonight's a little bit different. Tonight, the murderer I'm hunting is the meanest, bloodthirstiest bleep I've ever crossed paths with. And the hideout is my childhood home. Sabretooth, my worst enemy, is holed up somewhere inside the crumbling Howlett estate. He's supposed to be dead. I killed him. I've been led here by a letter from my mother who killed herself over 100 years ago because her son is a freak of nature. So yeah, tonight's a little bit different. So now Wolverine is finally entering into the estate. And when he gets in there, he's flooded with various scents here. Some, of course, that are familiar to him, things that you would expect. Squirrel fur, bird crap, rain, rotted wood. But then underneath all of that is a scent of the walls. Something that brings back all these memories of when he lived in this home as childhood, where he felt the weakest and the smallest and the most afraid. And all of a sudden, those feelings come back to him again. And those smells, they were so overwhelming that it took him a moment before he could catch another fainter scent that was coming from somewhere deeper on the inside. And that is when Wolverine really becomes a mess, because he can smell that it's the scent of his mother. And that smell continues to compel him down the hall, because he recalls he's like, the first sense that we get when we're born is not to see, but it's the smell from the very beginning. And I've known this scent before I could even form words. I put my mother's name to it, sure, but really, it smells like a part of myself, a part that's been missing for over 100 years. It's so hypnotic, so unignorable. But then once again, because Wolverine was in this trance and deep in thought, he fails to recognize that someone was there with him, someone with a crowbar. And they get Wolverine pretty decently here. But when we look to see who it is, it's the same loudmouth here from the bar. And before Wolverine could even see him, he smelled him and recognized who he was. So of course, easily he knocks back the attacker and then pulls out one of his claws and says, listen, you tried to kill me. Guess what happens to people who try that? But it's in this moment when the guy's like, please, please, I'm sorry. He made me. He has my sister. He'll kill her if I don't do what she says. And so Wolverine is like, okay, so this is what Sabretooth is doing now, taking hostages just to get to me? So Wolverine, although he don't like this guy too much, he pulls him up, but then tells him, if your sister ain't already dead, I'll find her, and that's a promise. Now, as Sabretooth continues on this journey, he's like, I'm getting close, I can tell it. But Sabretooth's actual scent is kind of hard to follow. Somehow he's masking it, playing cat and mouse. And as he continues on, Wolverine's not really hiding his emotions too well, and he sees it as a vulnerability. Because he's like, I'm wearing the pain and confusion of wandering these halls right on my face. And that sick bleep is watching and loving it. And when he goes into another room here, we see a chandelier that falls and almost hits Wolverine. I guess he won't be swinging from that one. And as Wolverine recovers, he gets to another scent here from upstairs. And it smells like old satin and blood. His mother's favorite ball gown. And when he gets there, well, it's not quite his mother. But he does see another woman tied up to the ceiling with the words right next to her that say, your fault. But what Wolverine realizes here is that the scent of this woman, well, it matches the guy that just tried to hit him with the crowbar. So Wolvie's like, all right, I guess the kidnapped sister then. But as he continues on, he can see what game is being played here. Sabretooth's note is supposed to mess with his head, torture him with guilt, make him hate himself for all the innocents that get hurt because of him. But to Wolverine, he's like, he didn't need to bother to do that because he does that on his own already. And as Wolverine walks up the stairs and he hears these other words that come through that say, you godforsaken animal, you killed her. And then in this next moment, we pan over to see these two ghosts that say a beast spawned by Satan, while the other one says murdering little cur. And Wolverine's like, holy crap. And then it's explained to us here who these ghosts are, which some of you already know already, based on what I talked about earlier, where it says John Howlett, the patriarch of this estate, and the man I thought was my father for most of my childhood. He was shot to death by Thomas Logan, the groundskeeper, my biological father, via his affair with my mom, the first man I ever killed. They died on the same night over 100 years ago, and now neither has a cent. But as Wolverine puts it, he's like, Sabretooth might have brought company, but I'm the last of the Howlets, which makes this my house, whatever the paperwork might say. That means it's my job to welcome company. But when Wolverine goes on the attack and he tries to hit, he hits nothing. He can't touch them at all. And he's thinking to himself, okay, well, if I can't touch them, they can't touch me, right? Well, not quite, Wolverine. And Wolverine's thinking to himself, he's like, listen, because I am 5'3", it does have its advantages, one of which is to be able to break out of holds. But even though he's continuing to try here, they are not letting go of him. And Wolverine right now is in a dangerous spot because he can feel the life being sucked out of him faster than he can actually heal himself. But even as he collapses, he can still smell his mother somewhere nearby. It's a living scent, a suffering scent, as he says, I failed her. As he screams out, mother, I'm sorry. But in that moment, there's a voice that comes out behind the door that says, please, please don't hurt him. Please show mercy. He's my only living son. And it's in that moment when they both stop. And it's that voice again, that voice in that moment that gives Wolverine the strength that he needs to get up and compels him down the hallway. And Wolverine has been so focused on the hunt that he hasn't even given any real thought to what he's going to say when he sees her. And he starts to rehearse to himself in his mind. He's like, mother, long time no see. It really messed me up that you hated me so much that you killed yourself. But then he's like, you know what? I should probably just start with hi. But as soon as he punches through that door and that he looks and sees her, he can't find any words to say at all. Instead, he goes over to try to break her chains that she's tied up in and says, I've got you. And it's in this moment here where he realizes, he's like, yo, this is no ghost. This is flesh and blood. She's really here. Then he sees the cuts on her face, but she quickly responds back. She's like, later, James, is that you? James, as she calls out because she's still disoriented. But when he tries to lead her out of the room, something happens. The lights cut off and they go black. But this right here is a little bit different because usually Wolverine can see fine in the dark, but not when it's this dark. So he's asking himself, he's like, yo, what the hell is going on? But then he catches a scent and he realizes, oh shoot, Sabretooth is here. And then Wolverine continues to say, he's like, you think you can hide from me? But then he responds back and says, nobody's hiding. I owe you a death. And tonight, I'm gonna pay you back double. So then cue round and fight. But when they get into the fight here, Sabretooth begins, of course, again to taunt Wolverine. He's like, what's wrong with the Wolverine? You look like you've seen a ghost. Disappointed I ain't dead? To which Wolvie's like, this ain't the first time you've proved too stupid to die, Victor. I want to know how you found her. Of course, talking about his mother. To which Sabretooth's like, I bet you do. But you know it ain't that easy. You're gonna have to make me talk. Which to Wolverine, he's like, all right then, fine by me. But the thing about it is here is that Wolverine is distracted and Sabretooth knows it because he tells him, he's like, yo, you're slowing down, runt. Worn out already? Or maybe you're just distracted. So as Sabretooth looks back and he sees his mother, Wolverine's like, Ma, you've got to get out of here. But, you know, of course, as usual, why would she listen? So, of course, she finds herself a weapon and then she stabs Sabretooth in the back as she says the words that I know had to pierce into Wolverine's heart. I won't leave you alone again. And as Sabretooth pulls that thing out of his back, he's like, well, ain't that touching? I can see the fear in her eyes, Logan, and it ain't just me that she's afraid of. And this time, of course, Sabretooth is like, nah, I know exactly what to do. And he shifts the fight to start chasing Wolverine's mom. But before he continues to chase, Creed stops and starts to point out one thing because they get into that same room where Logan had lost so much that night, because he begins to say, it was right around here, wasn't it, Elizabeth? Right around here that you did yourself in when you saw what a bloodthirsty monster your son is. I know you remember that night, Runt. Watching the man you thought was your father get his head blown off with a shotgun, cutting down your real father with the razor sharp claws of an animal, learning what it feels like to kill, liking it. But Wolverine is realizing that something weird is going on here, which of course, as we're reading this, we're picking up on it as well, right? Because he says, he's like, Victor and me are normally an even match, but this is different. He ain't a telepath, but somehow he's getting into my head. And as we fight, he's making me remember the worst night of my life. So Logan tries to get himself back together. So he tells himself, breathe slowly, get out of your own head and focus on your senses. And it's in that moment where he catches himself and does what he knows how to do. Because as he says, because you're the best that there is at it. And it's in that moment where he knocks Sabretooth out of the window. And as you can see in the image, they were up pretty high, so that was a pretty damn long fall. And I'm not gonna lie to you, man, watching the way that Sabretooth landed on his neck kind of made me snicker just a little bit, especially the way that he starts putting his head back in place at the same time. But for Wolverine, he was able to control his fall, and because Sabretooth was putting his neck back together, that gave Wolverine just enough time to be able to take advantage. Whereas he says to teach the ugly cuss a lesson. But he knows that Sabretooth heals as quickly as he does. So killing Sabretooth really ultimately takes persistence. But then right here, Wolverine gets distracted again because he smells his mother approach him as she screams the words out, please, please no more, son. Please, we've got to leave this place. And here Wolverine begins to think to himself again, he's like, my mother's scent mingles with the metallic tang of Sabretooth's blood. Life and death, love and hate. It takes everything I've got to shove the berserker back down inside of me to remember that I didn't come here for Victor. I came here for her. So he says back to her as he pulls himself back through, he's like, Ma, get away, it's not. But before he could even finish saying that, Sabretooth is back and he's like, hey Runt, where do you think you're going? And this time, Sabretooth changes his target because he jumps right after Elizabeth. But of course, just in time, Wolverine steps in to stop him from doing any harm. But then in this moment here, Wolverine begins to say to himself, he's like, I ain't a big art guy, but once upon a time, my lady love, Mariko, dragged me to a museum and I saw this painting, Jacob wrestling with the angel. Whoever painted that thing understood fighting, the way your muscles tense up, the heat inside of you. It stuck with me ever since, and for whatever reason, it comes to mind now. But the only way I'm gonna beat Sabretooth is to stop hiding from what I am, from my mother and from myself. I'm a fighter, a killer, a berserker, and I sure as hell ain't no angel. And in that moment, Wolverine takes a chomp and then begins to dive his claws directly into Sabretooth's arm and face. And he is indeed going into what looks like close to berserker rage. And as Sabretooth is knocked down and says, damn Runt, here comes Elizabeth again. And she's like, dear God. But then he has this vulnerable moment as he says to his mom, he's like, sorry you had to see that. I'm still a monster, Ma. But then she says, no, you're the furthest thing from a monster, James. This bloody work, you did it to save me. You have the eyes of a man who's killed before. But I can feel in my soul that any dark deeds you've done to help others. You are my son. And though I have little right to the title, I am your mother, not your judge. I thank Providence for giving me the second chance to make things right with you, to explain. I know you must have many questions. But as Wolverine gets ever so closer into her bosom, he says, just what? Why did you leave me alone? And the Wolverine continues to think to himself. He's like, I ain't one of these guys who's afraid to cry. It's normal and natural to howl in pain. And I've wept plenty for lost lovers and dead friends. But this is different, deeper. It's like shedding tears for the first time. Like all the agony that's been walled off inside of me since the day she died is finally broken out. And then Elizabeth says this, she's like, I am so sorry, James. You've been alone for so long, but I'm here now. I'm here. But here's the thing, that was not Elizabeth at all, because instead it's revealed that it's actually the mastermind. So I will be honest, I've enjoyed this little arc so far. However, I am a little sad that it's not real, right? Like we knew it couldn't be in a way, but you kind of hope just a little that it will give you a little bit of a different spin on this. But Wolverine is like the mutant version here of Spider-Man, right? He is just simply not allowed to be happy under any circumstances. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Also, I do want to mention again, one of the best ways here to support Keepin a Comic is by becoming a channel member, which will also give you access here to additional perks like badges, exclusive posts, and more. To become one, you can click on the join button right at the bottom of this video, right above the description. Or if you prefer, you can become a member of our Patreon, which offers similar perks as well. Link for that is in the description of the video. Thank you so much to Walt, who recently just joined as a member on YouTube, Brick and Thor's biggest fan, who have been rocking with us before, and also Jamie and Synchro over on Patreon. Don't forget to leave a like on this video here, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!